conducting this meeting via Zoom. It will also be live streaming on the city's YouTube channel. Some of us are actually in the Providence City office building at 164 North Gateway Drive. We've asked that people wishing to comment email their comments to providencecityutah@gmail.com or text comments to 435-752-9441. Ryan Snow is our city manager, and he's also monitoring the chat on YouTube. Correct, Ryan?
I am, that's correct.
And so right now we do not have, do we have any comments, Ryan, on anything that you've seen?
I do not have any comments on either the Zoom chat or YouTube at this time, but we are live on both.
All right. And I don't have any comments coming in on the Gmail account or on texting at this point. The members present for our Land Use Authority, we have Max Pierce, our city engineer, Rob Stapley, our Public Works Director. I'm Scarlett Bankhead, the Administrative Services Director. We also have Diane Campbell, who's our zoning specialist. We have Ryan Snow, our city manager. We have, looks like we have Sean Bindrup in attendance with us. And we have Mike Montgomery. And Mike, it looks like you may have somebody with you.
Hi, Scarlett. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Okay. We will start with our first agenda item.
She froze.
Did we lose you, Scarlett?
To the use authority looks at our conditional use.
Scarlett, we're losing you.
Got one, Scarlett. I think
Pardon?
right next to each other. We lost
Yeah,
you for a minute.
Yeah, you cut out for quite a while.
Oh, sorry. Okay, we will start with agenda item number 1. The applicant is requesting approval of a conditional use for an attached deck at the home of Sean Bindrup at 940 East Canyon Road in Providence. And one of the duties of the Administrative Land Use Authority is to consider conditional uses. So that's why this group is seeing it. Utah Code 109A507 gives the municipality the authority to adopt a land use ordinance that includes conditional uses. The county GIS parcel summary shows sensitive areas that might require further analysis. Providence City Code Title 10, Chapter 5 discusses sensitive areas. And in that code, it says that a conditional use permit is required for all permits involving a lot, parcel, or site located wholly or partially within an area subject to, and then it lists the different hazards. And one of those is hazard wildfire regulations. We also, in Providence City Code Title 10, Chapter 3, Section 5, give the city the ability to impose reasonable conditions to mitigate the reasonably anticipated detrimental effects of the proposed use of the health, safety, or general welfare of persons residing, working, or conducting business in the vicinity. We've concluded in looking at those laws that Providence City has actually adopted land use ordinances that include conditional uses and the provisions for conditional use. We've looked at the Cache County GIS parcel summary, and it indicates that this parcel is in a wildfire hazard area. And one thing I want to make mention of is just because the parcel summary says that that something might be for further analysis, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is. However, this is definitely in a wildfire area. The Providence has the authority to impose reasonable conditions to mitigate the reasonably anticipated problem. We get our slogan in City Fire Department for fire safety provided by the state of Utah in accordance with the International Fire Code. We feel this request meets the requirements of the code listed in the findings of fact with the following conditions. The applicant will continue to meet all relevant federal, state, county, and Providence City rules, laws, ordinances. The applicant will mitigate the wildfire area by, and we will look at the letter from Aaron Walker in just a minute. And it says that the contractor, Ryan Hoff, has also talked with Aaron about material used for the decking. And there are some conditions listed in that letter that we will go over. This conditional use is for the deck only as shown on the site plan, date stamped May 15th, 2020. So if in the future you decide you want to put another outbuilding on there that requires zoning clearance and a building permit, you'll have to come and see us for another conditional use as long as the current laws are still in place. Any fees would need to be paid as part of the zoning permit and conditional use, and the approval of the city of any application submitted or paperwork does not alleviate the owners and or their agents from their responsibility to understand and conform to local, state, and federal laws. Providence City's approval is not intended to and cannot be construed to allow any laws to be violated. One of the things that I should have asked a little at the beginning of the meeting, I apologize, it was probably in the cutoff part, and I forgot to restate it when I started over again. Did you, Sean, did you receive a copy of the agenda packet? Did you receive a copy of the staff report?
I think I did, yeah. The parcel summary and so forth, yeah.
Okay, all right. Before we review Aaron's letter, do you have any questions on anything?
I don't. I just wanted to point out that this project was approved last year and we just didn't meet the time requirement to get it finished. So we're just reapplying, I guess. That helps.
Okay, thank you. Aaron looked at this with the Utah Wildland Urban Interface Code 2006. And he is, what he has listed here is that the builder is planning on a Class A roof. The builder is planning on closing all underfloor decks and eaves with soffits. And the builder is planning on installing a 1/8 inch mesh on all vents. And all of those strategies are approved. Did you have any questions on any of those, Sean? Is this similar to what you've already been planning on?
Yeah, that's what we're planning on. I've got Ryan Hoff. I feel he's the best builder probably in the valley. And yeah, I feel very good about what he's got there. He had knee surgery this morning, and so he's not with us at this meeting today. But yeah, that's I think what we have planned.
Okay. Max or Rob, do you have anything that you would like to add to this?
I do. I thought this looked awful familiar, and I went back and tried to find some stuff because I was pretty sure that I'd seen this before. And I wasn't able to find any of my old information on it. But I do, or I am curious about the distance from the new deck to the toe of the slope, because if I'm not mistaken, that slope is greater than 30%. And I believe building code, and see some of the things, by the way, that I'm talking about, I think are from the previous review. But if I'm not mistaken, it is greater than 30%, and I don't recall what the distance was from the deck, the proposed deck, to the toe of the slope, and whether or not that meets the building code.
Do you,
Yeah, I don't know if I heard everything there. I think the concern was that the deck being close to the
Is that-
angle.
Yeah, my question is the slope of the hill, Sean,
Yes.
I believe is greater than 30%, if I remember correctly. And my question is, the building code requires a setback from a slope that is greater than 30%. And I believe the setback is 10 feet, if I'm not mistaken. That's my question. Are you going to be within that, the required setback that the building code requires from that steep of a slope?
Yeah, yes, we will. I believe the deck, there's actually a retaining wall if you look at it right there, but we'll be, I'm sure, 10 feet, at least 10 feet from that retaining wall. And then the slope goes up from there and falls away from the structure.
So on the site plan that you've got, it doesn't show the retaining wall unless I'm missing it. Does it show it on your site plan that has dimensions?
Well, I think it's that white line that's at the, right there. There's a sidewalk and you see a white line. There's a retaining wall right there. So it's where that sidewalk, I don't know if you can see the structure, but there's a sidewalk going from one building over to the patio now. There's a retaining wall that's on the south side of that sidewalk, and it goes behind the property at an angle. So it actually goes, the space gets greater as you go west. And so I think we've got on there, you know, we're at least 10 feet from that retaining wall. And then, like you say, it gets greater from there. I mean, it falls away. So yes, to answer the question, I think I'm pretty sure we'll be well beyond 10 feet.
How tall is the retaining wall approximately, Sean?
I would think 4 feet maybe.
Okay.
Just FYI, on the ROD from the last time it was approved, under findings of fact, it says no grade exceeds the 20% slope within 50 feet maximum.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Rob, do you have anything?
No, I mean, there is a ditch right there. Where's that ditch at in relation to that sidewalk and that retaining wall? Is that, I guess it's piped through there, I take it?
Well, I think it's, if they show that 45 feet, I think it's way up on the property line at the other side, to the south side of those trees. I think is a canal or a ditch. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
the main lateral for the Spring Creek Ditch Company goes back through there somewhere.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, he's got it 45 feet, but I think
You're
it's
right.
at
It's
the south end of those trees.
south of that white line quite a bit, which is
Yeah.
representing the retaining wall.
It's up at the south part of those trees where it's no trees, and then there's kind of a plateau way up there, quite a bit. So yeah,
Okay, well, as long as that easement is, you know, acknowledged and everybody's aware of where that's at and the access needs for it.
Rob, do you know, is that a written easement or is that just prescriptive, or do you know for sure?
I don't know that answer actually, whether that's been recorded or not. That ditch has been there probably long before most of the homes in Providence, so it's likely it's a prescriptive easement, but I don't know.
I think there's access. There's actually a road on the south end of those, or the south side of those trees. I think you enter from probably the deer fence and by Checkett's, and then you come behind those houses. There is actually a little, I think, a road. So I think that's the access for that. That's quite a bit elevation and quite a bit south of where my property is.
So I have a couple of things as well, Sean. And it's probably just cleaning up the paperwork between the two applications. Because from your original application and now the one that came in on the 15th of May of this year. It looks like on June 7th, 2019, you submitted a site plan. And unfortunately, the numbers, the dimensions on the 2019 plan and the dimensions on the 2020 plan don't match. I don't know if it's because they're going, I can't tell for sure if it's because they're going from different points, or really what the difference is, but we do, it looks like, looking at both of them, the dimensions would allow you to do what you want to do, but the problem is just the conflict in the two dimensions. So I feel like we either need to have you void one of the plans, but we need to
Well,
know.
yeah, the issue was I changed contractors, one I felt more confident in, possibly. And as far as the work that needed to be done. And so we would need to avoid the 219, I believe, and go with the 2020.
Okay. Then I have one other.
So Scarlett, real quickly on that, I noticed that on the 2019 drawing with dimensions on it, that one was also the one where there was a jog of the property line around the garage or the existing garage. I don't know, is that a player in this or not? Because the county website still shows the property line going straight, the west property line being straight. And there was something about having to jog around there to get the 10-foot setback for that property.
I don't recall either. Your
Was that
story
a
sounds
separate-
familiar, but I don't know how that shook out.
I mean, I know it's not a setback for the deck, and so that's why I'm wondering, but I did notice that, you know, in 2019, it showed that the property line being jogged over 5 feet to the west to keep a 10-foot setback around that garage, and now the county's website, at least currently, does not show that jog in that west property line.
Sandra Checketts went in and had that changed back to the original property lines, which is what it shows now. The jog into the Checketts property isn't there anymore. They've taken away that 5 feet and given it back to Checketts. Does that make sense?
That's correct. I think there was a time there that, you know, we had that different, you're right. And there was also, I don't know if any of you remember a barbell lot they talked about connecting Checkett's home with the shop and all of that many years ago. But yeah, I think that's all been reversed back now. We actually gave them a little and they gave us a little, I believe, how that went. But you're probably correct. I can't remember.
So one of the things that I'm looking up really quick, because that's where I was going to go, Max, was part of the difference between the two drawings. In Providence City's code, it says,
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
This is Tiffany Bindrup. I actually, and I'm just listening, sorry, I'm trying to do another meeting right now. So I'm trying to listen to what I can. But on that, Sandra did bring me some papers and have me sign those probably, I'm guessing, but about 6 months ago to reverse that back. And I don't know if you remember that, Scarlett, or what.
I do remember that. I do remember, and that's what I'm trying to make sure of, we just need to have some consistency in our documentation.
Yeah.
One of the things that reversing that back did, it makes it a non-conforming, it makes the little existing garage a non-conforming structure. But I think it only applies to the actual structure that is in non-conformance and not the entire lot. That's what I was trying to find in state code. It says that, I mean, in state code, in Utah code 10-98511, it says a municipality may not, or excuse me, a municipality may prohibit the reconstruction or restoration of a non-compliant structure or terminate the non-conforming use if the structure is allowed to deteriorate, the property owner voluntarily demolished it. But that's all talking about the structure that's in non-conformance. The deck would not be in non-conformance because this non-conforming structure is the detached garage, and it's not attached, it's a detached garage, so it's not part of the structure that the deck is being connected to. Ryan, do you know, am I interpreting that right? That it's based on the structure and not the entire lot?
It is based on structure. That is my read of it.
Okay. We also have a section in Providence City Code, which is Title 10, Chapter 7, non-conforming and non-complying structures. And that that also talks about the building. It does not talk about the entire lot that I can see. So Max, I think I think we do need to have a statement that actually shows which site plan is the accurate site plan. We need to make sure that the dimensions are on there accurate. And I do think that since that little garage is non-compliant and not attached to this structure, I think the non-compliance applies to anything they might want to do to that garage other than move it to the east. They could certainly move it to the east so that it became compliant, but where it's sitting right on the property line right now, that garage is now considered non-compliant. So Tiffany and Sean, did you realize that that would happen?
No, but I didn't realize that, but we don't, I don't think it's deteriorating and we're not going to remodel it. Is that the question? I didn't realize that would happen. No.
Well, and in my understanding of that too, we were told it would be grandfathered in, but is what I remember, but maybe I'm wrong on that.
Well, as long as we're not, that's a discussion for another time when that detached garage, if at some point in time you do end up that something, for whatever reason, you want to make changes to that, we'll have to have a real in-depth discussion about that detached garage. But you would have to come back and see us anyway, because like we said in the beginning, the only thing that this is allowing is for the deck. If you want to make any other structural changes, you'd have to come in and talk to us about a new conditional use permit for that change.
Okay, yeah.
So
we don't intend on changing that. Just to let you know that that garage was there, previous to when we moved into there. That was Brent Clark, I think, owned the home before we did, many years ago, 15, 17 years ago, possibly.
So one thing on grandfathering, generally when it's grandfathered in, if there is a change to the structure, if you had a change of the structure or change of use, if you came to apply to rezone the building or rezone the area, you'd have to do like you would any ADA building. You'd have to bring it up to the current standard, current ordinances. So grandfathering may apply as it stands, but if you do anything to it, that would take away the grandfathering. And so that's what Scarlett's saying is, just because it was grandfathered then doesn't always mean it's grandfathered.
Okay, that's correct. And I don't foresee making changes to that building for a very long time. It's forever in my lifetime. So, but we do understand that if we needed to make a change, the grandfathering would probably go away, I suppose.
Yes, it probably would, depending on the law that's in place at the time when you make the changes. So, but for this point of discussion, I just want it really clear that the structure that is in, that appears to be non-compliant is not part of the structure that the deck is attached to. The structure that the deck is attached to, which is your primary home, is certainly in compliant with the zoning ordinances.
That's correct.
Max or Rob, anything else you want to add?
Nothing else for me.
Nothing from me.
Diane or Ryan, anything?
Nothing from,
Nothing more for me.
Okay, Sean or Tiffany, do you have any other questions?
I don't, other than just, like you say, we changed contractors and we'll probably make the 2020. Well, I know we'll make the 2020. He's the contractor that actually filled all the forms out and so forth. That's the plan that we'll go with. I just wanted to note from the 219 that the project, 90% of it was the same and had been approved. Like you said, I think you said June 7th or something like that. But yeah, we'll go with the 2020 submission on that.
Okay. All right. That being said, I would entertain a motion to approve the conditional use for the attached deck at the home of Sean Bidrup at 940 East Canyon Road, based on the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions that we reviewed during the meeting. I would also like to add, if whichever of you gentlemen is willing to agree to the motion, but I would also like to add that we use that the site plan in the packet that was dated June 7th, 2019 is no longer correct, and the correct site plan that we will be using is the site plan dated May 15th, 2020. Does anybody, either of you, like to add anything to that motion?
Nothing. I'll go make that motion.
I'll second that motion.
So the motion by Max Pierce, second by Rob Stapley. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the voting was unanimous. Thanks, Sean.
Okay.
Diane will make some corrections on our record of decision to incorporate that motion, and then she will contact you about taking care of getting the permits and everything so you can get on your way with the building.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank
Have a great afternoon.
thank you. All right. Item number 2 is the Providence City Administrative Land Use Authority will consider an approval by Immaculate Homes, Mike Montgomery, for a residence located at 672 East, 525 North in Providence. Jeff, how are you today?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks. I'm not going to go over the findings of fact because they are the exact findings of fact that we talked about in the previous staff report. Oh, can you still hear me? My connection just came up as unstable.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. The conclusions are a little bit different though. You are here because of sensitive areas. However, the GIS, the Cache County GIS parcel summary indicates this parcel is in a landslide area. And so we're looking at this. We've adopted the land use ordinances that include conditional uses and provisions for conditional uses. We're looking at this because it is a landslide area is considered a sensitive area under Providence City Code Title 10, Chapter 5. And the city does have the authority to impose reasonable conditions to mitigate the reasonably anticipated detrimental effects of the proposed use. We've also come to the conclusion the request meets the requirements of the code listed in the findings of fact with the following conditions. The applicant will continue to meet all relevant federal, state, county, Providence City rules, laws, codes, and ordinances. The applicant will mitigate the landslide area and there's mitigation plans dated May 20th, 2020. Jeff, those are the plans that you sent out yesterday, right? Diane, is
Yeah.
that the?
The ROD has the plans that were dated when they sent in the application. The ones that were sent in yesterday aren't mentioned on this ROD or staff.
Okay, so then we need to amend this because the plans that were submitted yesterday, if or Max or Rob, you can correct me, but I believe those are actually stamped by the engineer, showing the retaining wall and the footings for the retaining wall, that type of thing. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was what we sent, and then structural calcs and everything yesterday, along with the wet stamp and signature. So
Max, did you have any concerns with the information that they sent as far as from an engineering standpoint? Do you feel like we have the documentation that we need for the mitigation strategies for the landslide area?
Max, you're muted.
Max, you're on mute. There you go.
Sorry about that. I was getting feedback, so I usually don't put it on mute, but, yeah, so I looked through there and they are structural calculations. I'm no structural engineer, but just reviewing them, they did, like to me, they took into consideration the fact that it was in a landslide area. And I didn't see anything that was alarming to me. And yes, they are stamped, Scarlett. They're stamped by a professional engineer as well, so.
Diane or Ryan, do you have anything you would like to add?
I do not.
Okay. Matt and Jeff, did you get the agenda packet with the staff report in it? Were you guys able to take a minute and review that? Do you have any questions on it?
yeah, no questions from what we have.
Okay. Do you have any other comments that you want us to be aware of?
Nope. No, I think we're good.
Okay. Rob, I can't remember. Did I ask you if you had anything else you wanted to add?
I don't. Other than in my notes, it looks like I red flagged that there's a potential for the water meter to end up in the driveway, and that would be in violation of code. I guess you noticed that red flag, and I don't know if it's truly going to end up in the driveway or if it's going to have to be relocated or not. But
Yeah, if it does, I know. Is that something typically that you would like to do, the city, or something that you would allow the builder to do?
the builder does it with correlation with us so that it
Okay.
can get done to our likings and
Okay.
understandings and diagramming.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Okay. If there are no other comments on this agenda item, thank you, by the way, Matt and Jeff, or excuse me, Mike and Jeff, for the additional information that you provided. I would entertain a motion to approve the conditional use for the residential site plan for a home at 672 East, 525 North in Providence, based on the findings of fact, conclusions of law, and conditions, and also changing the conditional uses for the residents only as shown on the site plan that was received by email on May 26th. And then, Rob, do you want to add anything about moving the water meter in the motion, or are you okay?
No, I'm okay as far as the conditional use goes.
Okay. All right. Max, is there anything you want to add to the motion?
Nope.
Okay. That being said, then, would one of you want to make that motion?
Sure, I'll make that motion.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Motion by Rob Stapley, second by Max Pierce. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the voting is unanimous. Conditional use for Mike Montgomery and Immaculate for residents located at 672 East, 525 North is approved. Just want to caution you that you make sure that you have your property corners staked prior to having the building, Cache County building officials come out. They're not supposed to approve anything unless they can measure from property pins to make sure that you've got your foundation in the correct place as shown on your site plan. Just a word of caution. So,
Okay.
all right. Is there anything else that anybody feels like they need to bring up? We don't have any other agenda items, but is there a point of business that anyone feels like they need to bring up that we need to include on a future agenda item?
Nothing for me.
Okay, hearing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
We adjourn.
I'll second it.
Motion by Max Pierce, second by Rob Stapley. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye.